Yeah. Senator Ayres.
I'm very happy to be guided.
It's now 2 p.m. I'm afraid. Sorry about that, Senator Ayres. You'll be in continuation. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. Yesterday, Mr Morrison said, and I quote, "The challenge of JobKeeper is that businesses will form views about those employees who they will be able to keep on longer term and those who they will not." How many Australians does the Prime Minister expect will lose their jobs and be left behind when he withdraws JobKeeper at the end of September?
Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the government doesn't want any Australian to be left behind, but it is also true that we will not be able to provide crisis-level temporary support through a program like JobKeeper forever and ever. Forever and ever. I mean, the focus for the country surely must be, the commitment for the country surely must be for us to get back into a situation as soon as possible where businesses around Australia are able to pay the wages of their employees out of their income rather than on the basis of crisis-level temporary fiscal support. Now, Mr President, clearly we've been hit with a 1-in-100-year global pandemic that has had devastating impacts on our economy and on jobs, and we provided crisis-level support. The next important decision is how we most appropriately transition into the strongest possible recovery on the other side, and the government will continue to make responsible decisions in that
Senator Wong, on a
context.
point of order.
Point of order. The Prime Minister made a statement yesterday, and the question went to how many people he thinks will lose their jobs, as he contemplates in his statement. I'd ask the Minister to be directly relevant to the question.
On the point of order?
Well, the question directly asked actually how many Australians the government intends to leave behind, and I directly answered that by making the point that the government doesn't want any Australian to be left behind and will continue to provide.
I'll
so I was directly relevant.
On the point of order, I do consider the Minister to be directly relevant. There's an opportunity to debate the merits of answers after question time. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. The Australian people know that we made the best possible decisions in a set of very difficult circumstances to provide transitional support to keep as many businesses in business, as many Australians in jobs as possible, and to provide enhanced support to those Australians who, through no fault of their own, lost their job. And that is indeed what we've done. It was always clear that this would be a temporary arrangement, and the Australian people would expect us to help facilitate the strongest possible recovery as soon as possible, so that all Australians have the best possible opportunity to get ahead. And if they cannot continue in their job that they had before COVID, in their current business that they work for, then we've got to make sure we create the conditions where they can find a new and better job in another business.
Senator Wong, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. There are already 140,000 more people on JobSeeker than the government predicted for the month of June. How many more Australians does the government believe will join the 1.65 million already on JobSeeker when Mr Morrison snaps back JobKeeper in September?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Firstly, I reject the premise of the question. What I would say is the government will continue to work to maximise the strength of the recovery on the other side. The government will continue to make responsible decisions, and the government will continue to ensure that all Australians have the best possible opportunity to get back into work if they've lost their jobs, or to ensure that they can have have a job in a business that is viable over the long term if that business indeed is not able to recover post-COVID.
Senator Wong, a final supplementary question.
Digital Finance Analytics has warned that as many as 100,000 Australian households will default on their mortgages when JobKeeper is removed in September, with more than 5 million Australians and their families currently relying on direct government support. Why is Mr Morrison continuing to insist on a flawed snapback strategy which will leave millions of Australians behind during the country's first recession in 29 years?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senator Wong can repeat false assertions to scare people as often as she wants. It doesn't make them come true. What the government has said is that JobKeeper will remain in place for 6 months and that we will continue to make responsible decisions on how to most appropriately transition into the strongest possible economic recovery on the other side. There is a review currently underway, which is well publicised by Treasury. Treasury will be putting advice and recommendations to the government, and the government will continue to make responsible decisions as we have over the last few months, as we've been dealing with a 1 in 100-year global pandemic and devastating impacts on the Australian economy.
Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Cash. Minister, can you outline for the Senate how the Morrison government's plan for a stronger economy is guaranteeing essential services, including by maintaining and improving capacity in our health system throughout the course of the COVID-19 pandemic?
The Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator McGrath for his question. Mr President, in what has been one of the most intense periods in Australia's history, our health system has performed remarkably well. It has been, by all assessments, the envy of the world with the way it has been able to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. The way that our primary care system has responded to COVID-19 has been outstanding. Our doctors, our nurses, our pharmacists, supported of course now by telehealth. Our hospitals, where our hospital workers, our carers, our cleaners, our administrators, they have worked tirelessly to manage the cases that have arisen and increase our capacity to respond to the COVID-19 outbreak. And, Mr President, I'm pleased to advise that in relation to our aged care network, as of yesterday, there are no active cases of COVID-19 in any aged care facilities in Australia. As of yesterday, we have now reduced the number of people in hospital because of COVID-19 to 17, and the number in ICU is now at 4. Australians have also seen the positive results of our testing regime and our collective success in flattening the curve. Our testing regime has now seen over 1.8 million tests conducted across Australia. Of those, 7,335 Australians approximately have been diagnosed with COVID-19, and sadly, as we know, 102 have lost their lives. The rate of positive returns has now dropped to 0.4% across the 1.8 million tests, and of those, 62% of cases have come from overseas. Mr President, as a result of Australians working together to suppress COVID-19, our health system and those who work tirelessly in it—
Senator McGrath, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. As the government has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, how has the government continued to invest in our health system to ensure it is resourced and ready for future challenges?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, throughout the course of COVID-19, the Morrison government has continued to ensure that Australia's health system capacity will meet future challenges. We have reached a new national hospital reform agreement with the states and territories. Under this new agreement, the Commonwealth will increase its investment from $100 billion to $131 billion. At the same time, we're delivering a new 5-year community pharmacy agreement that expands remuneration for the dispensing of subsidised PBS medicines, community pharmacy medication management programs and services to $18.349 billion over the 5 years of the agreement. Mr President, this is up $1.5 billion compared to the 6th community pharmacy agreement. Again, Australians can be assured that throughout the COVID-19 crisis, the Morrison government continues to invest in the health system.
Senator McGrath, a final supplementary question.
Can the minister advise the Senate how this work has improved access to medicines?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, I think this is one of the great success stories of the Morrison government. That is, of course, as a government, we continue to make more medicines available for patients on the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. Since 2013, because of our strong economic management, our government has approved now more than 2,400 new or amended listings on the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. This represents an average of around 30 medicine listings or amendments per month, or one each day, at an overall investment by the government of $11.6 billion. Mr President, Australians with asthma and multiple myeloma will have broader access to life-changing medicines as a result of expanded medicines listings on the PBS scheme from the 1st of June 2020. Our government, the Morrison government, we are committed to ensuring that Australians that need to access affordable medicines
Senator
are
Cash,
able
time
to
for the
do
answers
so.
expired. Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston. Does the government remain committed to withdrawing the coronavirus supplement in September? And what is the minister's advice to the 2.3 million Australians who will be $550 per fortnight worse off?
The Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you very much, Senator Gallagher, for her question about what has been an extraordinarily important issue over the last 3 months, and a very important supplement that has been in place to help those people who find themselves without a job during a time when the job market is effectively closed. We have supercharged our safety net to assist people who find themselves unemployed because and during a time of completely unprecedented unemployment pressure on our market. But we said at the time, and we remain committed, to temporary, targeted, time-limited measures to help Australians to get through the crisis that is before us. We always said that our measures that we put in place, not just the coronavirus supplement, but many other measures that this government put in place to make sure that we could assist Australians who were immediately impacted and with an impact that came about in the most extraordinary circumstances, that we've supported them through this time. We remain committed to supporting Australians during the coronavirus crisis, but we also remain committed to making sure that we put our economy back on track. So, in answer to your question, the time-limited measures have been put in place to meet the extraordinary circumstances of the coronavirus pandemic.
Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Thank you. The 2.3 million Australians include hundreds of thousands of students, widows, farmers and parents. How many of the 2.3 million does the government think are lifters, and how many are leaners?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. What I can tell the senator in response to her question, that this government is absolutely committed, always has been from the day that we became aware that we were faced with this absolutely enormous crisis that was before us, that became very evident in February, is that we were going to work with the Australian public, we were going to work with the Australian community. In fact, we were even working with the Australian federal opposition and the oppositions and the governments in the states and territories around Australia, so that we could all work together, so we could support all Australians through this crisis. And in doing so, one of the most important things that we can do as a government is to make sure that our economy is supported, so that jobs are recreated, so that we can get people who are currently unemployed back into employment as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what the focus of this government has been right the way through. Support people during the time when there was unemployment, but to make sure the jobs are recreated so they can get back to work as soon as possible.
Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr President. Department of Social Services figures show that the coronavirus supplement will be providing at least $2.6 billion per month in direct fiscal support in September. Why is the government insisting on a $2.6 billion per month hit to the economy during Australia's first recession in 29 years?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. The Australian government, the Morrison government, the coalition government is absolutely committed to putting the right measures into our economy to make sure two very clear things happen. One is that we support Australians who need our support during this time, and the other one is to make sure that we get the economy kick-started on the other side of this, so that we can actually have the jobs, so people can go back. Those opposite would know. Those opposites seem to think that they have got some sort of claim on monetary and fiscal policy within the economy. If they'd like to have a look at Economics 101, you'd actually realise there are many ways that you can stimulate an economy, whether it's through fiscal or monetary policy, and as Senator Smith behind me said, reducing the tax burden. I mean, for some reason you seem absolutely fixated on particular things that you might think are the only way to stimulate the economy. Well, we on this side know that you have to have a suite of measures, a full package, to make sure that you are taking a holistic approach to looking after all Australians.
Order. Order. I will call the next question. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Environment Minister, Senator Birmingham. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced plans to cut environmental laws to fast-track assessments of developments and mining projects. This plan cuts corners and removes vital checks on the impact projects will have on our environment. Why is your government weakening protection for the environment that will put Australia's forests, our beaches, our native animals and our ancient historical sites at further risk?
The Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank Senator Hanson-Young for her question, although I do reject many of the claims that Senator Hanson-Young has made in that question, Mr President. What our government takes pride in doing is upholding environmental laws, but making sure that we don't strangle economic activity in a morass of green tape and indecision and lack of progress in terms of analysing and assessing the applications that come before us. So, our government, Minister for the Environment, President, has worked hard to make sure that decision-making is more efficient and effective. That's something that should be applauded around this place. Rather than projects sitting there waiting, not knowing whether they're approved or not approved, we actually are backing them to get through the pipeline. Where conditions need to be applied, they're applied. Where they need to be rejections, they're rejected. But, Mr President, what the Prime Minister announced yesterday was a $25 million investment in specialist project teams, new approaches to information sharing between the Commonwealth and states, to reduce backlogs, to reduce the time taken for assessments, to make sure that there is less duplication of assessments between the Commonwealth and the states. This is simply about making our environmental regulation more efficient, more effective, so that it can serve its purpose of protecting our environment and our biodiversity and our conservation needs, but that it doesn't strangle economic development, and particularly at a point of time in our nation when we want to make sure that those investments that can go ahead do go ahead. We want to make sure that those who are willing to put money on the table and to make projects happen that will generate jobs for Australians, that goes ahead wherever possible, wherever it is not in breach of our environmental laws, not that it sits somewhere in the backdrop for years just waiting for somebody to make a decision. We're not afraid to make decisions, but we will make sure we make the right decisions for our environment and for the jobs of Australians.
Senator Hanson-Young, a supplementary question.
Thank you. Australia has already lost 1 million hectares of koala habitat because of the weak environmental laws in place. Koalas in some areas are now endangered. Minister, you've pledged to uphold environmental laws. Will you guarantee that not one more hectare of koala habitat will be destroyed under your plans?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, thanks, Mr President. I'm sure Senator Hanson-Young does actually know that across different parts of Australia there are indeed different areas of habitat for koala species and quite different population trends in those different parts of Australia as well. So Senator Hanson-Young invites me to come in here and give some blanket guarantee about koalas overall and not one more hectare, without acknowledging the fact that in different parts of the country there are absolutely strong, vibrant populations of koalas that we want to see continue to be strong and vibrant populations. But that's not to say that there can't be complementary developments, particularly of a tourism nature or the like, that can ensure sustainable activity in those communities and continue to preserve koala populations and habitat as is necessary. And that's the careful balancing act that we commit to undertaking, to make sure we preserve those most important species for Australians, but also that we ensure Australians have jobs as well.
Order. Senator Hanson-Young, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. Can the minister guarantee that fast-tracking approvals for mines and projects will not result in any more blasting of ancient historical sites, such as the destruction of a 46,000-year-old sacred site in WA last month by Rio Tinto? Will you fix the laws to guarantee that this type of environmental vandalism will never, ever occur again?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I know it suits the agenda for the Australian Greens to come in and to, of course, make everything the fault of the government standing here, to ignore completely the reality of decision-making that might be the responsibility of state or territory governments, to figure that the EPBC Act is somehow a one-stop shop for every form of protection to occur. But the truth lies elsewhere. It certainly doesn't lie in the picture painted by the Australian Greens. Now, Mr President, I in no way condone unnecessary destruction of heritage, particularly of Indigenous heritage, which has a crucial role to play in sectors such as our tourism industry and, of course, is so important in terms of preserving the culture of our first Australians. But, Mr President, I won't take lectures from the Australian Greens or suggestions that somehow the policies of this government are to fault or are to blame for actions or decisions of state or territory governments and their regulatory authorities.
Senator Patrick. Senator Patrick.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Finance and concerns government procurement and expenditure. AusTender shows that since 2016, the construction giant Lendlease has won federal contracts worth more than $661 million, overwhelmingly for Defence Department construction. In addition, the Defence Minister announced in April this year the award of further contracts valued at $365 million, bringing Lendlease's total haul to over $1 billion. Is it not the case that the Tax Office's tax transparency reports show that the 5 years from 2013-14 to 2017-18, Lendlease generated $43 billion in revenue, generated a profit before tax of more than $5 billion, but didn't pay a cent in corporate income tax? Are you aware that the company's own reports further show that they paid no income tax in 18-19 and don't expect to pay some any time yet? How do you reconcile awarding billions of dollars of contracts to corporate giants that pay no corporate tax?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Every business in Australia that makes taxable income has to comply with Australian tax laws and pay income tax according to our laws. I'm not going to discuss the tax affairs of individual taxpayers. That wouldn't be appropriate. Furthermore, I mean, you do know, of course, that tender decisions are not made by the government of the day. They're made following a proper, rigorous tender process, appropriately at arm's length from the government of the day. I think you would expect that to happen, based on a proper assessment of the relative merits of specific proposals. In Australia, businesses are not taxed on their revenue. They're taxed based on their taxable income, and on that basis, of course, every business must comply with our tax laws.
Senator Patrick, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. The government's own figures and announcements show that Lendlease has been awarded nearly $800 million in contracts this year, 2020, and it's only June. In these circumstances, why is Lendlease allowed to access the JobKeeper program to pay some 15%, nearly 1,400 members of its 9,200 Australian workforce, when it seems flush with contracts? How do you justify this company milking taxpayers' money when they pay no corporate tax?
Order. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I don't accept the premise of the question. I mean, the terms and conditions on which businesses can access support through the JobKeeper program are well known. For businesses with a turnover of less than $1 billion, it requires a 30% drop in turnover. For businesses with a turnover of more than $1 billion, it has, there is a bigger test, a higher test, a more difficult test. Indeed, they've got to demonstrate a 50% drop in turnover. So, again, I'm not going to talk about the specific affairs of individual businesses or individual taxpayers. That would be inappropriate. But in the broad, the terms and conditions on which individual businesses can access that program, which has supported more than 3 million Australian workers, are of course the same for everyone.
Senator Patrick, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. To the Finance Minister, the information I'm talking about in relation to income tax comes from tax transparency data published by the ATO on Lendlease. Why is the government comfortable in awarding billions of dollars of contracts to a company, Lendlease, that has not paid a brass razoo in corporate tax for well over 5 years?
Senator Cormann.
Well, thank you very much, Mr President. I refer Senator Patrick to my first answer to the primary question. We expect all Australian businesses to comply with our tax laws and to pay corporate tax or relevant taxes corporate tax in this instance in relation to their taxable income. Now, if you if the suggestion in your question is that somehow this business that you're referencing has broken the law, then I would encourage you to make relevant reports to compliance authorities, to law enforcement authorities. If a business that complies with the laws and employs many Australians, complies with the laws and provides, of course, important services to Australia, of course, if they win on merit a tender, I don't think that you would suggest that we should politically interfere in preventing a business from taking on a tender that they've won based on a proper competition and assessment at arm's length from government.
Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. Yesterday the Minister said that HomeBuilder would be, and I quote, directly supporting 140,000 tradies and a further up to 1 million jobs indirectly in the residential construction sector. ASIC estimates there are 1,183,000 people employed in the entire construction sector last year. Does the Minister stand by his claim that every single construction job in the country will be supported by HomeBuilder?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator
Thank you very
Cormann.
much, Mr President. I would encourage Senator Gallagher to reflect on the words directly and indirectly, and indeed I stand by my answer.
Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question. Order.
Thank you, Mr President. My supplementary question is, what is the total value of private investment that the government expects to generate through the HomeBuilder program?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I think I've gone through all this in some detail yesterday. I've gone through this in some detail yesterday. We expect that about 27,000 projects will be supported through this program. The terms and conditions of this program are well known, and we'll report on it on the other side of this period that has been in place.
Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Does the government believe that HomeBuilder will fully offset the projected decline in the residential construction sector employment?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, this is not a program that operates on its own. I mean, this is a program that will make an important contribution to supporting workers in the residential construction sector. And of course, in a number of states, state jurisdictions will be complementing this scheme. And I can see that the Labor Party clearly doesn't like supporting workers in the residential construction sector. Doesn't like supporting workers in the residential construction sector.
Senator Wong on a point of order.
Point of order. What we don't like is ministers misleading
That's
about
not
their
necessary.
numbers. That's what
Senator
we don't
Wong,
like.
You know better than that on a point of order. I didn't hear a reflection or imputation there, I must say. I'll call Senator Cormann to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr President. We will continue to do what we have been doing. We'll continue to make decisions to support working families around Australia. We let the Labor Party continue to do what they're doing. We let you continue to throw verbal rocks at the government. We'll just get on with the job.
Senator Molan.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Birmingham. Can the minister outline some of the support measures the Morrison government is implementing to support the tourism industry in response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
The Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I thank Senator Molan for his question. As was clear from the release of yesterday's overseas arrivals and departures data, there's no industry in Australia that would be suffering any more, or frankly has been suffering for any longer period of time this year than our tourism industry. And tourism operators right across the country deserve the thanks of everyone for the sacrifices they, along with so many others, are making to help ensure our country stays safe at present, particularly given the burden that is falling upon them as a result of the necessary closure of international travel borders into Australia. As senators know and indeed debate and contest, the $260 billion package of economic support measures we've got in place is playing a crucial role in supporting many of those tourism industry businesses and their employees at present. Those assistance measures range across the small business payments that we are making to those many businesses, particularly family-owned small and medium-sized businesses in the tourism space. We've provided as well aviation industry support, financing solutions and, of course, JobKeeper payments that are supporting so many different parts of the tourism sector. We've also stepped in where there are additional fixed and specific costs in businesses that, were they to go under, it could threaten the viability of a tourism region or ecosystem. In particular, I give the example of our $94 million package for exhibiting zoos and aquariums. This is an important package that acknowledges that in those businesses, whilst JobKeeper measures may be helping with staff costs, whilst rent relief may be helping with other costs, whilst the small business payments may be helping with other normal ongoing costs, there are high fixed additional costs that we've provided support for in terms of the care and treatment of animals and ensuring the welfare of those animals within those important tourism attractions across our many regions and cities of Australia.
Senator Molan, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister advise the Senate how the government's plan for a stronger economy, including record and growing infrastructure investment, continues to support the tourism industry?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, while these are dark days for our tourism operators, we are determined to support our tourist regions in particular to be ready to capitalise as states and territories reopen travel within and across their states, and ultimately for when we do get back to hosting many millions of international visitors to our country again. In the 2019-20 budget, our government announced a further $200 million towards a fourth round of the Building Better Regions Fund, which has brought that fund and program to in excess of $800 million of investment. It's in addition to programs like our $50 million Tourism Icons program. And just a fortnight ago, our government announced 163 successful projects under Round 4 of the BBRF, and many of those support crucial tourism infrastructure in the regions across Australia. In my home state of South Australia, for example, the Silver to Seaway finishing in Port Pirie, a crucial development in Senator Molan's in New South Wales, the Condobolin Tourism Precinct offering the banks of Lachlan River in Western New South Wales enhanced tourism.
Senator Molan, a final supplementary question.
How is the government encouraging Australians to visit and support bushfire-impacted regions in my home state of New South Wales?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr President, no senator in this place, I think, has greater appreciation and understanding of the impact the bushfires had in parts of New South Wales than Senator Molan, and I thank you for your advocacy for many regions in those parts of New South Wales. We, of course, initiated various tourism campaigns before COVID-19 hit to try to encourage travel across those regions, and we stand ready to recommence those as border restrictions and travel advisories allows. Such campaigns showed off the stunning glasshouse rocks in Narooma, alongside an interview with zookeeper Chad from the Featherside Sydney Wildlife Park and the Mogo Zoo. We've made sure that we've promoted 10 country towns near Sydney that people should take a day trip to this winter, which featured the Southern Highlands, Berrima and Bowral, and the South Coast, Jamberoo and Kiama. The best spots for beach camping in New South Wales, which showcased Eurobadella's Mystery Bay and Mimoosa Rocks National Park's Picnic Point. The Snowy Mountains also featured in our Live from Australia
Senator
campaign.
Birmingham, time for the answer has expired. Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Defence. On the 19th of March 2020, the Minister confirmed that at least one incident of alleged war crimes from Afghanistan has been referred to the AFP. The Inspector-General ADF confirmed in his annual report that Judge Brereton is investigating 55 separate incidents, many of which may also lead to referral to the AFP. In the interim, families of affected ADF or former ADF members have told me they are being provided internal ADF legal support through Defence Counsel Services for the IGADF inquiry. But what terrifies them is the uncertainty surrounding funding available to pay for expensive criminal trials flowing from that inquiry. If provided, this funding would be made pursuant to a policy known as legal assistance at Commonwealth expense, which is discretionary. Members have no certainty that they will get the legal representation that they need for a fair trial. Is the Minister aware that because of this uncertainty, many of those under investigation are now contemplating mortgaging their family homes or commencing public GoFundMe pages to fund their criminal defence teams?
Order. Senator Reynolds, the Minister for Defence.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Lambie for raising this very important issue. And before coming to the specifics of this question and the letter I provided you in response to this issue, can I just say to all in this chamber that it is well known that this inquiry is underway. It is an extensive and a very complex inquiry involving incredibly serious subject matters, and many witnesses and lines of inquiry have occurred. Now, in the course of this inquiry, I did table the Inspector-General ADF's annual report a few months ago, which did make very clear the serious nature of the inquiries under review by him. The Chief of Defence Force has advised me that the inquiry report will be handed to him in coming months. He will then consider its findings and, with my close oversight, will determine the actions required in consultation with the IGADF. Now, where there are serious rumours and allegations raised about the conduct of our ADF members, Australians would rightly expect that they are thoroughly examined according to the rigorous and well-established processes that are in place. Australians would, of course, also expect all ADF members to be treated with the utmost fairness throughout these processes, and also, of course, their family members. Now, in relation to the specific issue that Senator Lambie has raised with me, I can confirm that legal support will be provided, and I'm currently discussing that with the Chief of Defence Force and also the Attorney-General on how that will occur. But at all times during the conduct of the inquiry and through its conclusion to the next phases, a range of legal, psychological, medical, pastoral and social work support services continue to be made available to inquiry witnesses and other individuals impacted.
Order, Senator Reynolds. Senator Lambie, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. When Australian ADF personnel last faced similar prosecutions in 2010, the then Chief of Defence Force, Angus Hewson, told this Senate that no expense will be spared to fund the defence of soldiers facing prosecution. Will the minister, like she just hasn't then, give a commitment and confirm that it is her expectation that legal assistance at Commonwealth expense will be afforded to any ADF or former ADF member facing criminal prosecutions from their service in Afghanistan, including funding lawyers of their choice?
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President. As I said, Senator Lambie you have raised this previously with me, and I have also confirmed these matters with you in writing. But for the benefit of all senators, I want to be very clear that throughout the inquiry, the IGADF has worked well in establishing the processes to ensure that witnesses are provided with access to legal support. And as I confirmed in writing to Senator Lambie, it is a long-standing position that current and former serving ADF members can apply for Commonwealth financial assistance for civil or criminal legal proceedings that they are involved in. And if the proceedings arise out of an incident relating to their service with Defence and that they have acted responsibly and reasonably, then this will be provided. Senator Lambie, and as I have just restated, it is absolutely my intent to ensure, and it is the CDF's intent to ensure, that those who are caught up in this process
Senator Reynolds,
do continue to get the support.
Senator Lambie, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. The word discretionary. Let's go again. The IGADF state on their website that Defence cares about the welfare of all personnel involved in the Afghanistan inquiry. We know the AFP investigating now and the Commonwealth has already appointed a prosecutor. What I'm hearing is that many ADF members strongly feel that this commitment to their welfare is nothing more than lip service, and if the minister is refusing to guarantee legal assistance, then what is the minister going to do to ensure that ADF members are placed on an even footing and get a fair bloody trial like they deserve?
I urge senators to watch their language in the chamber about what is parliamentary, Senator Lambie. One can be passionate and use parliamentary language. Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And as I've said, I've already stated twice the support that is being required, that is being provided and will continue to be required. But Senator Lambie has raised a prior precedent in relation to this matter, and can I emphasise to all in this place that this earlier matter that Senator Lambie quotes is not a precedent in the current circumstances. And the IGADF annual report makes it very clear that the Afghanistan inquiry is not focused on conduct that occurred in the heat of battle. And so that is a very important differentiator in this circumstance. But as has been provided throughout this process, all legal, psychological and family support has been provided, and will continue to be provided.
Senator Watt.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. Last month, the Prime Minister promised that all bushfire-affected properties in New South Wales will be cleared of debris by the end of June. Will Mr Morrison keep his promise?
Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. As I'm sure Senator Watt would know, it is actually the New South Wales State Government that is doing the job on the ground, supported by the federal government, which is providing 50% of the funding to pay for the cost of the clean-up. I am happy to inform Senator Watt that as of 11 May, I believe that about 2,500 out of 3,700 houses had the debris cleared. About 130 crew across New South Wales are working as we speak, with about 300 houses cleared of debris a week. Of course, state authorities, relevant authorities in New South Wales will continue to work as fast as they can. My advice is that most debris will be cleared by the end of June, and all is expected to be completed by 31 July. In all of the circumstances, including the impact of COVID-19, I would have thought that the Labor Party would understand that we are dealing in a particular circumstance that is more challenging than we envisaged back in January.
Senator Watt, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Government figures show that in snowy Monero, not 1 out of 119 bushfire-affected properties had been cleared of debris. In Queanbeyan and Palorang, just 1 in 13 bushfire-affected properties has been cleared of debris. And in New South Wales, fewer than 1 in 3 bushfire-affected properties have been cleared of debris. Why has Mr Morrison failed to live up to his promise to clear New South Wales of bushfire debris by the 30th of June?
Senator Cormann.
And here we go. Here we see what it's all about. Here we see what it's about. Here we can see what it's about. Look, our government will continue to do what we can to support New South Wales in working as fast as possible in providing support to bushfire-affected communities. And in relation to cleaning of debris across bushfire-affected areas, and in particular in the electorates that Senator Watt has mentioned, I'm advised that by 20 June about 208 properties are expected to be cleared, 188 now. In snowy Monero, 31 will be cleared by 20 June, 11 today. In Queanbeyan and Palorang, 64 will be cleared by 20 June, 48 today. And in Bega Valley, 431 will be cleared by 20 June, 375 as of today. And Eurobodella, 600 will be cleared by 20 June and 570 by today.
Senator Watt, a final supplementary question.
Why, when the promised clearing of bushfire debris hasn't happened, small businesses are struggling and bushfire survivors are still living in caravans, is the Prime Minister spending nearly $300,000 on market research on bushfires instead of providing survivors with the immediate support he has promised?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I completely reject the premise of the question. About $1.4 billion worth of funding out of $2 billion is already hitting the ground as we speak in communities and supporting individuals, and that is on top of a whole series of funding already available through existing disaster recovery measures. The Prime Minister works tirelessly every single day to ensure that communities across Eden Monero and indeed all around Australia receive the support that they deserve and that they need through this difficult period. Certainly the communities in Eden Monero have been hit hard with bushfires and, of course, are also feeling the impact of the coronavirus crisis. And I know that in the Liberal National Morrison-McCormack government, they are getting our absolute best support that we can possibly deploy.
Cormann. Senator McMahon.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. The Australian community has been doing a lot of heavy lifting to ensure they stop the spread of COVID-19. This coalition government has been the envy of the world with the swift measures it took
to protect the health of Australians. Can the minister update the Senate on what the government's plan is for opening our state and territory borders? And if we do not, what are the implications for our economy?
Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator
Thank you
Cormann.
very much, Mr President. I thank Senator McMahon for that important question. Our government has been working closely with state and territory governments through the National Cabinet process to lift restrictions across the nation in a way which is COVID-safe, but as swiftly as possible. As the Federal Chief Medical Officer and Deputy Chief Medical Officer have made clear on a number of occasions, there is no medical reason for any state borders to remain closed. In fact, there is no health advice in front of us that state or territory borders need to be closed. The closure of state borders is having a significant negative impact on our economy. With international borders closed, tourism operators will need to rely on domestic holiday makers to fill the void from international tourists. Tourism is worth around 3.1% of our GDP, or around $60 billion last financial year. In fact, the tourism sector employs around 670,000 Australians, or 5.2% of all workers. That is why the longer the state and territory borders stay closed, the bigger the impact on our national economy. The clear three-stage plan to lift restrictions included borders being opened in July. The Prime Minister said that there was a very open and constructive discussion at National Cabinet last Friday about reopening borders, and we're also proposing to work closely with states on a pilot basis to enable international students to come to Australia in a very controlled setting. But clearly, and this is an important point, and I think it's an important point for the people in the territory, while travel to a state or a territory is not allowed from other parts of Australia, we cannot consider travel to that jurisdiction from overseas. And if we want to ensure that tourism operators and businesses around Australia have the best possible opportunity to be successful again and to hire more Australians and more Territorians, we need to see those borders come down as swiftly as possible.
Senator McMahon, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister inform the Senate if the Commonwealth is aware of when the states and territories, like my Northern Territory, are going to reopen their borders?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. It was agreed at National Cabinet on Friday that all states except WA would look at reopening their borders in July. This was in line with National Cabinet reconfirming its commitment to the three-step framework for COVID-safe Australia to be completed in July 2020. South Australia is committed to reopening their borders from July 20. Queensland was expected to be on track for July reopening, although media reporting is now putting some doubt over that based on comments from Queensland Premier Palaszczuk in their parliament today, where she said that the borders will remain closed, and I'm quoting, while there is active transmission. The Chief Minister of the Northern Territory has indicated he will make an announcement by the end of this week. Tasmania has no date for reopening, and my home state of Western Australia has indicated it will not be reopening its borders in July. The Australian government is intervening in 3 High Court cases that challenge the closure of the WA and Queensland state borders. The Commonwealth Attorney-General is intervening to make constitutional arguments in support of opening our state borders.
Senator Cormann. Senator McMahon, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister outline the coalition government's plan to assist rural and regional economies to return to prosperity post-COVID-19 restrictions?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator McMahon for another very good question. The coalition government understands the COVID-19 pandemic is having a disproportionate impact on some sectors, regions and communities, including those heavily reliant on industries such as tourism and agriculture. This is why we are providing a $1 billion relief and recovery fund to support regions, communities and industry sectors that have been disproportionately affected. That is why yesterday we announced further infrastructure investments, which included $1.5 billion for roads. These roads packages include key investments that help rural and regional Australia, such as the Beef roads in northern Queensland and the Bustle Highway in Western Australia, roads which will form vital linkage points to ports and to our key markets. There is still a long way to go in recovering from this once-in-a-100-year global pandemic, but we are heading in the right direction, and we will continue to do all that is necessary to ensure Australians and our rural and regional economies have the best possible opportunity to return to prosperity.
Senator Cormann, time has expired. Senator Walsh.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care, Senator Colbeck. I refer to the minister's statements regarding the retention bonus for aged care workers. Yesterday, the minister said, and I quote, "We never said at any point in time that these support bonuses would be tax-free. That was never said." Does the minister concede that his media release of 20 March 2020 described the payments as after tax?
The Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. And at no point in any of those statements that Senator Walsh has just read, I thank you for the question, particularly in my press release, did I say that the bonus would be tax-free. Never said that it would be tax-free. And that's exactly what I said yesterday. We never, at any point in time, Mr. President, indicated that this bonus would be tax-free. We said at all times, that these bonuses would be up to $800 and up to $600, but we never said at any point in time.
A point of order, Senator Wong.
Direct relevance. It was a very specific question. Does the minister concede that his media release described the payments as after tax? I've asked you to remind the minister of this question.
The minister, at the point you interrupted him, Senator Wong, I believe was actually directly addressing, albeit challenging, the assertion contained in the question. Now, that is a matter for debate after question time. It's not a matter for me to direct the minister how to answer the question, but I believe he was being directly relevant, and opposition senators can say something after question time in the appropriate slot. Senator Colbeck.
Mr. President, thank you. Thanks, Senator Wong. At no point in time did the government say that these bonuses would be tax-free. At no point
Senator Wong,
say they were tax-free.
on a point of order.
Thank you. Point of order. I seek leave to table the minister's statement, which shows clearly the words "after tax per quarter" on 2 occasions. I mean, this is becoming a farce. Question time should have some accountability associated with it. He's simply
Senator
lying.
Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Wong, I'm going to ask you to withdraw that particular accusation directed at an individual senator.
He is simply not telling the truth, Mr. President.
I need to.
Sorry, I withdraw.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Cormann on the point of order.
There are some basic courtesies when it comes to tabling of documents. Senator Wong has been here long enough to know.
On the order. Order. On the point of order. Opposition senators who wish to challenge the minister's answer have an opportunity to do so after question time. The point of Senator Wong, he is directly addressing the terms of the question, and you have an opportunity to debate it. I cannot direct the minister how to answer a question. I've allowed you to do so, Senator Wong, on 2 occasions. And Senator Wong, the answer can be debated after question time. But as long as the minister is addressing the terms of the question, and he is directly addressing the terms of the question, I do not have the authority to direct him how to answer a question. Senator Colbeck.
Mr. President, the statement in my press release does not mean tax-free, which is the implication that the Labor Party are trying to make. And so the 2 statements are completely and utterly compatible. The government at no point indicated that these bonuses would be tax-free, and because that is not the way income bonuses work, they are clearly subject to tax, because at no point in time did we say they would be tax-free.
Senator Walsh, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the minister assist the Senate by telling us what he thinks the words "after tax" mean?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr. President, the words "after tax" do not mean tax-free. Clearly do not mean tax-free. And, Mr. President, we at no point in time, the government at no point in time, said that these bonuses would be tax-free. Mr. President, and quite frankly, I am very proud of the fact that this government recognised a particular sector of the Australian workforce to provide them with
Senator Watt, on a point of order.
Of order is relevance. We just want to know what after-tax means.
Sorry, Senator Watt, I believe the minister is being directly relevant. I will listen carefully. He's 27 seconds in. He was asked about what a term means, and he is actually directly addressing in that particular part of the question, which was the only part of the question. Senator Colbeck.
Mr President, only the Labor Party could make a full glass sound as though it's empty. This government made a very deliberate decision to provide support to aged care workers during the COVID-19 pandemic because of the circumstance they found themselves in. And we said that they were important to the government, they were important to the community, and so we made a decision to provide up to $800 and up to $600 for residential aged care workers and home care workers to support them through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Senator Walsh, a final supplementary question.
Why did the minister's press release use the phrase after tax if not to suggest that these bonuses would be tax-free? Why does the minister find it so hard to own up to his mistakes?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr President, as I said, thanks Senator Walsh for the supplementary question. As I said in my previous answer, after tax does not mean tax-free. It's a very, very simple statement. It's a very, very
Senator Pratt.
It's a very simple statement, Mr President. And I'm very proud of the fact that this government provided support to residential aged care workers and home care workers. In fact, this group of workers is the only group of workers in the Australian economy that was provided with direct support to recognise the work that they do through the coronavirus pandemic, in recognition, Mr President, of the fact that their work is so important in the care of senior Australians. A very specific decision, Mr President, to support residential and home care workers to look after senior Australians through the pandemic because of the importance of the work that they do.
Senator Dean Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Family and Social Services, Senator Ruston. Can the minister advise the Senate what the Morrison government is doing to support Australia's oldest Australians and guaranteeing essential services for our seniors, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you very much to Senator Smith for his question. And also, can I thank him for the recognition of the commitment that we all have to making sure that we support older Australians within our communities, particularly recognising the significant contribution that older Australians make to our economy and to our society, and recognising also the impact that the COVID pandemic has had on all Australians, particularly our older Australians. So it was with we were pleased to be able to put into place for all eligible pensioners and seniors 2 payments of $750 in addition to any other payments that they were receiving to help them with the economic and the costs associated with the pandemic. So as of the 31st of March 2020, the first round of these payments went out and were successfully delivered to 3.4 million Australian pensioners, as well as 170,000 carers who were on carer allowance, 230,000 veterans payments and Commonwealth Gold Card holders, as well as 375,000 Commonwealth Seniors Health Care Card holders. The second payment will be made in July and will be made to those people who have not been in receipt of the coronavirus supplement. Additionally, we have also recognised that with very low interest rates, that deeming rates needed to be reduced. So around 900,000 Australians who were living on income support recipients who also had amounts of liquid assets in excess of the acceptable levels or the threshold levels also received a drop in their deeming rates, and these reflected the lower interest rates in the economy. Equally, we have been very keen to make sure that our pensioner loan scheme is available to older Australians so that they can, in effect, reverse mortgage their properties to make sure they can have the additional
Senator Ruston.
money.
Senator Smith, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister update the Senate on what initiatives the government has implemented to support our senior Australians?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. We know that about a third of our senior Australians live alone, and with social distancing and the measures that we've had to put in place over the coronavirus pandemic has meant that many of them are relying on different ways to become connected. So connecting online or on the phone is especially important at this time for our older Australians, and that's why we have put additional funds in to two particular initiatives to help prevent loneliness and social isolation for older Australians. The first is a $5 million package to significantly expand the Friends line, which is a telephone line. It's free and it's anonymous, and it allows older Australians to chat with a friendly volunteer about whatever issue may be concerning them. And the funding will boost the line to allow an extra 15,000 calls to be answered in the period. In addition, we've put another $1 million into a program called Be Connected, where older Australians who find themselves with technology that may not be able to be used, or they don't have any mobile phone or a
Order,
computer.
Senator Ruston. Senator Smith, final supplementary.
Can the minister advise the Senate how the government is supporting our volunteers, especially our senior volunteers?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Senior volunteers make up a very significant proportion of Australian volunteers, and we know that during the COVID pandemic, many of our older Australians have chosen not to continue to volunteer because of health risks or accessibility. And that saw a significant decline in the number of people that were volunteering, and we understand the significant impact this makes on our economy. And for that reason, we have made sure that we've continued to be able to put measures in place, including awarding a number of 2,698 grants across a number of areas, but across a lot of organisations, between $1,000 and $5,000 to be able to help them. And we'd like to particularly thank Volunteers Australia and acknowledge all of Australia's volunteers and the amazing job that they do, because we know that the economic benefits and the yield that all Australians and Australia receives from volunteering is absolutely immense, and we thank them.
Order, Senator Ruston. Senator Cormann.
I ask that further questions be placed in a notice paper.
I ask senators to pause for a moment. I've